The public offices of the Urban District Council of Enfield, situated close to the banks of the New River, were the headquarters at which were conducted the preparations necessary before the formal application to Her Majesty the Queen for the grant of a Royal Charter of Incorporation could be made. After many years of research and consultation, the first formal step, after the Council had passed the necessary statutory resolutions, was the setting of the Council seal to the petition to Her Majesty the Queen, praying for the grant of a Charter of Incorporation. Early in September 1951, the common seal of the Council was affixed to this historic document, in the presence of Councillor W.J. Howes, J.P., Chairman of the Urban District Council of Enfield, Councillor Percy Robson, J.P., Chairman of the Incorporation Subcommittee, and Mr. C.E.C.R. Platten, LLB, the Clerk of the Council. Other councillors were also present at the ceremony in the Chairman's room at the public offices. During the years that passed after the petition had been submitted to Her Majesty's Privy Council, the members of the Incorporation Subcommittee met on very many occasions to settle the 101 details relating to obtaining borough status. The work put in by this subcommittee over the period between application and granting of the Charter eventually received its reward by the magnificent public response to the events of Charter Day and the days which followed. Many hundreds of hours were spent at meetings, and dozens of items on the agendas were dealt with. The councillors on the Incorporation Subcommittee were faced many times with rearranging their own personal timetables in connection with their particular business, trade, or profession to allow meetings of the subcommittee to be held, and many long hours were spent in meetings after a heavy day's business. Scenes such as this were numerous, as members of the Incorporation Subcommittee once again enter the public offices to hold yet another meeting. During the course of these meetings, held in the committee room of the public offices, the members could be seen debating the many questions which had to be settled with regard to the future borough status. Although these individuals were responsible for the planning of the arrangements for and success of the charter proceedings, they remained, as far as the public were concerned, very much in the background. This film will introduce these people to you. Mr. C.E.C.R. Platten, Clerk of the Council. Councillor A.A.F. Tatman, Chairman of the Subcommittee. Councillor G. Deacock. Councillor D.R.J. Boxall. Councillor W.G. Bowyer. Councillor A.H. Saunders. Councillor A.D. Bates, Councillor J. Cottenham, Councillor E.L. Mackenzie, Mr. E. Stone, Senior Committee Clerk. The 23rd of May, 1955, was a historical day for Enfield. At noon on this day, the new borough came into being on the holding of the first meeting of the Borough Council. In the new hall of the county school, in the presence of distinguished citizens and the general public, the chairman of the former Urban District Council, Councillor A.M. Eales, opened the meeting by calling for nominations for the office of Enfield's first mayor. 2 nominations, Councillor J. Cottenham, J.P., and Mr. W.G. Bowyer, were then proposed and seconded. The voting then took place for Councillor Cottenham, and then for Mr. Bowyer. Councillor J. Cottenham, having been elected Mayor of the Borough, was congratulated by the last chairman of the former Urban District Council, and the meeting then was adjourned. On the resumption of the meeting, the Mayor, preceded by the Mace, entered the council chamber, followed by the town clerk and the Mayor's chaplain. The Mayor, having made and subscribed his declaration of acceptance of office before the town clerk, took the chair. The Mayor thanked the council for his election, and the members then proceeded to vote in the first election of a borough alderman for each of the 10 wards. The voting completed, the papers were collected, and the result of the election ascertained. Among some 300 present at this first meeting of the Enfield Borough Council were representatives not only of the burgesses of today, but over 100 school children of Enfield, the burgesses of tomorrow, in their smart school uniforms, who had been invited by the council to witness this event so historic in their own lives and that of the town of Enfield. Also present were Enfield's 2 members of Parliament, Mr. Ernest Davis and the Right Honourable Ian MacLeod, Minister of Health. Each of the newly elected aldermen thereupon made and subscribed before the town clerk his acceptance of office as alderman. On behalf of the aldermen newly elected, Alderman A.A.F. Tatman, J.P., returned thanks to the council and was supported by Alderman G. Deacock. Councillor Mrs. G.M.J., J.P., after the announcement of her appointment as Deputy Mayor, was received on the dais by the Mayor and expressed her thanks. After dealing with a number of items of a formal character, the business of the meeting concluded with a vote of thanks to Alderman Eales, the last chairman of the old Urban District Council, after which all stood while the mayoral procession left the chamber. During a short reception prior to a civic luncheon, the Mayor received congratulations from the many distinguished guests. Within a very short space of time, the scene of the council meeting was transformed and prepared for the civic luncheon. After the many guests had taken their places at the tables, the mayoral party entered and occupied their places at the top table. The guests at the luncheon included many distinguished personages and their ladies in the public life of the borough and of the county. Included in these were the High Sheriff of Middlesex, the Chairman of the Middlesex County Council, the Members of Parliament for the district, aldermen and councillors of the borough, representatives of the churches and of the press, and members of the Manufacturers' Association, the Chamber of Commerce, the Cooperative Society, Rotary Clubs, and of ratepayers' associations in the district, and many other local bodies which had supported the Council's petition for a Charter of Incorporation. It is noteworthy that included in this distinguished citizens present were members of the Charter Fund Committee, which now became prominent in raising funds for the district's charter celebrations. The luncheon proceeded with a general atmosphere of gaiety and light-hearted relaxation. and the scene was indeed a very happy one, and one which undoubtedly demonstrated the pride with which the citizens and organizations of the district had welcomed the momentous change which had this day taken place in the status of the district. After the health of Her Majesty the Queen had been proposed by His Worship the Mayor, speeches were made reflecting civic consciousness and pride in the district's elevated status and determination to uphold Enfield's proud record. The health and success of the borough was proposed by Mr. G.A. Roberts, local industrialist, who, as chairman of the Charter Fund Committee, with other prominent local industrialists and public-spirited individuals, raised the funds necessary to make possible the week of charter celebrations, and so concluded for Enfield a very historic occasion. The grant of a charter to Enfield was the inspiration of much goodwill towards the new borough, which was expressed in the tangible form of many valuable gifts. Perhaps the most striking of these was the Mace, the gift of the Enfield District Manufacturers Association. Here it is seen in the course of construction in the workshop of a famous London firm of crown jewellers. Much research went into the design of the Mace, and its heraldic symbols themselves portray a part of Enfield's history particularly associated with the development of the town's trade and industry. On it appears the charcoal burner's fire, that primitive industry of the forests of the Chase, which supplied the early blacksmiths with their fires and the bakers of London with fuel for their ovens, the windmill, the cogwheels of industry, and the first electric lamp. The precious metal used in its construction came from the refineries of an Enfield firm. The Mace was entirely handmade, and in the artistry of its design and its exquisite engraving and chasing, the designer and craftsman have combined to create this emblem of the power and authority of the new borough, which will be admired and treasured by many generations to come. Another symbol of the status and dignity of the new borough is the Mayor's badge and chain of office, the gift of the Enfield Chamber of Commerce. Here again are beautiful examples of hand engraving and chasing, and also enamelling, carried out in the same London workshops. The Chamber of Commerce were very proud to present this particular gift to the borough to be worn by successive mayors, and symbolizing for all time the respect which the traders of the district have for the local government of their town. The beauty of this fine example of British craftsmanship can be clearly seen as the hands of its designer, who also designed the Mace, arranged the links of the chain and the badge. On both the Mace and the Mayor's badge appears a replica of the coat of arms granted to the new borough by the College of Arms. Here, a hand-coloured copy of the borough arms is being prepared by a member of the council's staff. Another gift was that of the wig and gown presented to the town clerk by the solicitors of Enfield, many of whom attended personally to offer their congratulations and also to present him with an illuminated address as a token of their esteem. Many societies and associations of Enfield men and women, as well as individuals and the school children of the district, made gifts of insignia, silverware or furnishings for the council chamber and mayor's parlour, or subscribed to the charter fund. very close to Charter Day, came the presentation of the Borough Mace, to be accepted on behalf of the Borough by the Mayor, with members of the Incorporation Subcommittee in the Mayor's parlour. The President and Chairman of the Enfield District Manufacturers Association, Mr. Edgar Lee, and Mr. A.G. Everett, made the presentation of the Mace, which was examined with keen interest by the representatives of the Council. The Mayor and Alderman Bowyer expressed the grateful thanks of the Borough to the Manufacturers Association for this wonderful gift. On the evening of September the 26th, the day before Charter Day, the Enfield Chamber of Commerce, through their chairman, Mr. Vincent Walford, presented to the Mayor the badge and chain of office. The Mayor expressed the sincere thanks of the Council to the Chamber for the gift and for the contribution which its members had made to the development and prosperity of Enfield. Charter Year also contained a nationally important event, a general election. This was an added task for those responsible for the local administration of the district. By election day, the town was fully geared to elect its 2 members of Parliament. From early morning until late evening, the people cast their votes in the many polling stations throughout the borough. 4 candidates stood for election to represent Enfield East and Enfield West. The Conservative candidate for the West was the Right Honourable Ian MacLeod, the Minister of Health, who, with the help of Mrs. MacLeod, conducted a very vigorous campaign and was elected. Opposing for the Labour Party was Mr. W.A. Court, seen leaving the party offices in Silver Street to start the day's tour of the polling stations. Mr. Ernest Davis, a former Joint Under-Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs, seen with Mrs. Davis, was re-elected Labour member for Enfield East. His opponent was Mr. Jim Manning, the national sports writer and commentator. With Mrs. Manning, he is seen talking with local traders. The Council has arranged a very comprehensive and varied programme of entertainment for many years. Among the many events which drew large crowds during Charter Year was the visit to the town park of the band of the Arab Legion. This world-famous band was a colourful attraction with their white uniforms and gay coloured accoutrements, and gave a performance of a very high standard. To the delight of the crowds, they spontaneously demonstrated their traditional country dancing. This performance amused the spectators, particularly as it was obvious that the dancers were enjoying the fun as much as their audience. Here indeed was something novel for the Enfield citizen. These romantic figures with their swarthy faces and bizarre headgear, bringing with them a breath of the desert as they danced on the typically English greensward with a background of English elms and oaks. In the course of its history, Enfield Town Park has been the scene of many unusual sights, but few can have been more exciting and romantic than the visit of the Arab Legion Band, with its magnificent record in both world wars, when they served side by side with British troops. Later in Charter Year, another very attractive item in the programme of municipal entertainment was a visit to Durrance Park of the Dagenham Girl Pipers. very large crowds attended to watch the excellent performance of this world-famed pipe band. Led by their pipe major, they gave demonstrations of Scottish Highland dances and pipe music. These energetic and competent young ladies had appeared before most of the crowned heads and rulers of European countries, and during the war they entertained and brought memories of home to many of our troops stationed in different parts of the world. To the thousands of prosaic folk in Durance Park, with the twirl of their kilts and the skirl of their pipes, they brought the romance of the Highlands and of the heather. To the delight of the crowd, the girls called for young men volunteers to dance a reel. These were soon forthcoming, and very quickly they began to be a little too enthusiastic. However, the young ladies rose to the occasion and gave as good as they received. One of their number was certainly popular. After a performance of nearly 2 hours, the Dagenham girl pipers gave their final number, and amid a great ovation proceeded to march off to be congratulated by the mayor and many members of the general public. They had once again won high praise for their colourful and exhilarating performance. Very shortly after the new borough came into existence, a children's folk dancing and singing games festival was held at the Enfield football stadium in Southbury Road. Making his first public appearance in his robe and chain of office, the mayor arrived, accompanied by the mayoress and the town clerk, and was welcomed by members of the Education Committee. His worship proceeded to open the festival, which had attracted a large crowd. Throughout the afternoon, the children gave a delightful performance to the obvious pleasure of the many visitors. This festival of dancing, performed by school children from many of Enfield schools, is an annual event which has steadily increased in popularity. The children participating do so with obvious enjoyment, which is shared by the watching parents. During his year of office, the mayor has devoted a great deal of his time to the old folks of the borough and to the children. One of his first duties after Charter Day was to visit with the mayoress many schools in the borough and to talk to the children. His informal and friendly approach was quickly responded to by the younger generation. The mayor seemed to understand their interest in the granting of borough status, and in his inimitable way explained some of the values of the charter to the future burgesses of the borough. At the conclusion of the festival, the mayor was given a vociferous send-off as he left the stadium after a most enjoyable and refreshing display of dancing. On Friday, July the 22nd, a party of 100 young men and women arrived from Gladbeck, Western Germany, at the invitation of the Enfield branch of the All Nations Sports and Cultural Association. They were accommodated in various parts of Enfield in the houses of sports-loving citizens. The mayor of Enfield is seen chatting with the 3 German sisters to whom he and the mayoress extended hospitality during the week of sporting fixtures. The athletic fixtures were held at the new sports arena at Enfield Playing Fields, which complies with the most modern requirements of the Amateur Athletic Association. A month earlier, the Enfield and Ponders End athletic clubs, in association with the Enfield Borough Council, staged a charter sports meeting. The fixtures included a ladies' inter-club competition for the Daily Mirror Trophy, a 1,000 yards invitation race, and an inter-club match for the Jarvis Cup. Very much in the news at that time and running at the meeting was the British international runner Miss Deanne Lever, who attracted a great deal of interest. She won her event, but failed in her attempt to establish a new record. Paying an informal visit to Enfield, Madame Bozinovich, the Yugoslav Minister of Finance, was received at the public offices, in the absence of the Mayor, by the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Mrs. J. In the Mayor's parlour, Madame Bozinovich praised the work of the Enfield Committee of the International Help for Children, who had arranged the visit of a number of Yugoslav children to Enfield for the second successive year. She then visited the printing works of the Enfield Gazette before proceeding to Carterhatch Junior School. Here she showed great interest in the British system of education and enjoyed watching the young children taking part in their own sports. Madame Bozinovich later expressed her country's thanks to the people of Enfield for the hospitality extended to the Yugoslav children. In September 1954, representatives of the Enfield Committee of International Help for Children accompanied as guests of the Yugoslavian War Veterans Association the children when they returned home. An annual event which, since its inception, has rapidly grown in popularity with the general public is the Enfield Show. Sponsored by the Borough Council and staged under canvas in the town park, it presents to the public the hobbies and handicrafts of the town. The long-awaited Charter Day, September the 27th, 1955, dawned with warm sunshine, adding colour to the impressive scene in the market square. Contingents of various local youth and other organisations marched along Church Street to take up their allotted positions in and around the square. From 10:15 a.m., when a peal of bells from the parish church started the day, the preparations continued. Meanwhile, at the borough boundary, High Street, Ponders End, the Mayor and Mayoress of Enfield, accompanied by the Town Clerk and the Mace, arrived ready to welcome the Lord Mayor of London and the Lady Mayoress and their party. Five minutes later, the Lord Lieutenant of the County of Middlesex, the Lord Latham, was received. At exactly 11 a.m., the procession, led by the Lord Mayor's coach, was seen making its way towards the borough boundary. The crowds lining both sides of the main thoroughfare were quick to respond to the scene of pageantry, and amid their excited cheers, including those of hundreds of schoolchildren, the Lord Lieutenant introduced the Mayor and Mayoress of Enfield to the Lord Mayor and Lady Mayoress of London, Sir Seymour and Lady Howard. The procession then commenced its journey along the main Harford Road, passing through lines of cheering people. Television, movie and pressmen had already begun to record this historic event. Turning left into Southbury Road, the procession passed through double lines of factory personnel who had turned out for the occasion, over the junction of the Great Cambridge Road and into the town. Here, thousands of people gave the procession its greatest welcome, and excitement and enthusiasm reached its peak. Many had climbed to vantage points in every available window and rooftop, while others had a grandstand view from the balcony of the George Hotel. The carriage bearing the Mayor and Mayoress of Enfield enters the town. The crowds give vent to their appreciation of the splendor of this unique spectacle. Sweeping past the gaily decorated stores and acknowledging the cheers, the Mayor in his carriage enters the market square. The happiness of the first citizen and his lady is clearly apparent to the public who throng the market square as the Mayor and Mayoress leave their carriage and take their position to receive the Lord Mayor's party. Following in the wake of the first carriage came the second and third, carrying Mr. Sheriff L.B. Prince, M.A., accompanied by Mrs. Prince, and Mr. Alderman and Sheriff E. Calcott Price, O.B.E., accompanied by Mrs. Price. Each in turn entered the market square, to be followed by the resplendent mounted figure of the City Marshal, Colonel J. Hume Taylor, O.B.E. Amid the splendid pageantry of the scene could be heard the bells of the parish church of St. Andrew breaking into Queen's changes and adding to the general air of excitement and anticipation. The fourth carriage, bearing the Lord Mayor and the Lady Mayoress, attended by the sword-bearer, the common crier, and sergeant-at-arms, entered the square, closely followed by the fifth and last carriage, bearing the Lord Lieutenant. The Lord Mayor and Lady Mayoress leave their carriage and obtain their first view of the market square, where stand the Guard of Honour from the depot of the Middlesex Regiment, Duke of Cambridge's own, with the band of the 7th Battalion of the regiment, under their commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel W.D. Ellis, O.B.E., T.D. Flanking the square stand contingents of various local organizations, including Scouts, Guides, British Red Cross, British Legion, the Air Training Corps, St. John Ambulance Brigade, Sea Cadet Corps, the Army Cadet Corps, the Boys Brigade, the Civil Service, the Civil Defense Corps, and the Territorial Army. A fanfare by trumpeters of the Royal Military School of Music, Kneller Hall, heralds the Lord and Lady Mayoress. At this point, the Lord Mayor, accompanied by the Lord Lieutenant, prepare to inspect the Guard of Honour. The inspection proceeded, and it was here that the charm and cordiality of the Lord Mayor became apparent to the vast crowds assembled before him. On several occasions he stopped with the Lord Lieutenant and talked in the most friendly and amiable way to various members of the Guard of Honour and congratulated them on their smart appearance. After the inspection, the aldermen and councillors and their ladies proceeded to their places for the presentation ceremony, while the Lord Mayor completed the introductions of the members of his party. All was now ready for the climax of the day, the presentation ceremony to take place in the Rialto Cinema adjoining the Market Square. As the chief participants in the presentation ceremony left the Market Square, they paused for a moment to allow the many press photographers present to secure a photographic record of this memorable episode in Enfield's history. the fanfare sounds, the dignified procession, led by Aldermen A.A.F. Tatman and G. Deacock, and followed by the Mace, the Mayor and Mayoress, the Town Clerk, the Bishop of Willesden, the Chaplain, the City Sheriffs and Officers, the Lord Mayor and Lady Mayoress, the High Sheriff, and the Lord Lieutenant, proceeds to the platform. The address of welcome is presented to the Lord Mayor by the Mayor of Enfield. The Lord Mayor, in replying to the address, laid stress on the historic associations of Enfield. He touched on his travels during his year of office, and then, with characteristic sincerity, expressed to the people of Enfield his thanks for the magnificent welcome afforded to him and to the Lady Mayoress on such a historic occasion. After congratulating the Mayor and the Mayoress and wishing them every success in their year of office, the Lord Mayor, with all due solemnity, formally presented the Charter of Incorporation. The audience rose to the occasion and heralded this historic moment with a spontaneous burst of applause. The Mayor of Enfield accepted the Charter and spoke in acknowledgement of the honour bestowed upon the town. The presentation ceremony over, those on the platform retired to the foyer of the theatre to disrobe. Lord Mayor was shown an enlarged photograph of the sealing of the petition to Her Gracious Majesty, praying for the grant of a charter, which he kindly autographed. After the strain of the presentation from the borough boundary and the presentation ceremony, the short break immediately prior to the civic luncheon came as a welcome relaxation. The Lord Mayor and Lady Mayoress chatted informally to those present. In the great hall of Enfield Grammar School, some 180 guests sat down to the Charter luncheon. Here were assembled representatives of every walk of the borough's public and business life. Aldermen, councillors, leaders of industry, all enjoyed the magnificent oratory of the Lord Mayor, who, after responding to the toast to himself, proposed the health and prosperity of the new borough. Leaving the scene of the luncheon, the Lord Mayor and his party visited the parish church of St. Andrew, where they were welcomed by the Reverend Graham Buston, the vicar and Mayor's chaplain. Here the Lord Mayor showed much interest in the tomb of Sir Nicholas Renton, one of his illustrious predecessors in the City of London and a resident of Enfield in the 17th century. The vicar conducted Sir Seymour round the other historic points of interest to be found in the ancient church, where a small congregation of the church's workers had gathered in honour of their distinguished visitor. Meanwhile, the carriages which had brought the Lord Mayor and the Mayor of Enfield and their respective parties to the market square had again been brought up, ready for the processional route by way of Silver Street, Baker Street, and 40 Hill to 40 Hall. Before entering his coach, Sir Seymour Howard turned to the large numbers of people still lining the market square and waved in response to their enthusiastic cheers. The procession then set off from the market square into the town en route to 40 Hall. Both sides of the road at 40 Hill were lined with cheering schoolchildren and their parents, as in the glorious summer weather which fortunately had prevailed during the whole of Charter Day, the first carriage bearing the Mayor and Mayoress of Enfield swung into the entrance of 40 Hall. The crowd which had assembled there had a splendid view of each carriage as it approached and turned into the grounds, as also did those who thronged the main carriage drive leading to the mansion. This was a historic occasion. Perhaps for the first time for 3 centuries, a Lord Mayor of London was arriving in state by carriage at this famous dwelling, built by a Lord Mayor as his residence. And who knows, in this age of mechanized transport, perhaps this would be the last time that such an event would ever occur. By the time the Lord and Lady Mayoress had arrived at the main entrance to Forty Hall, the enthusiasm of the people in the grounds had reached its peak. The Mayor of Enfield then invited Sir Seymour Howard to enter the ancient house for the purpose of opening and inspecting an exhibition of Enfield art and history. At this point, the Lord Mayor made a gesture which permanently endeared him in the hearts of the thousands of people who by this time had broken through the ranks of smiling policemen and surrounded him. With gracious informality, he walked amongst the crowd accompanied by the Mayor, and for nearly 20 minutes chatted with the parents and children who besieged both him and the Mayor for autographs. The charming informality of this incident, not contemplated in the pre-arranged programme, but so characteristic of Sir Seymour, delighted all who witnessed it. The happiness of the Lord Mayor was quite infectious as he passed from one bunch of children to another, bending down to ask one child her name, showing his magnificent jewel of office to another section of visitors, and informally chatting with a small band of excited mothers. This indeed was one of the highlights of Charter Day, which had combined pomp and ceremonial with touches of informality from the moment the Lord Mayor's coach had arrived at the borough boundary. Most reluctantly, the Lord Mayor allowed himself to be gently steered away from the crowds and into the interior of Forty Hall. On the lawns of the south side of Forty Hall, the civic party enjoyed a display of maypole dancing by representative children of Enfield. Here once again the Lord Mayor showed his sincere interest in the younger people, as he sat surrounded by various civic dignitaries. Frequently he inquired about the young children performing before him, and repeatedly led the enthusiastic applause for their charming display of dancing. During his term of office as Lord Mayor of London, Sir Seymour had travelled to many parts of the world, and long before his arrival in Enfield for Charter Day, his high reputation and reports of his sincerity had reached the people in advance. This visit to Forty Hall completely confirmed these earlier reports, and without doubt accounted for the tremendous ovation both he and Lady Howard received an hour or so later when they finally left Forty Hall to return to the Mansion House. After tea, Sir Seymour and Lady Howard bade farewell to the Mayor and Mayoress of Enfield, and once again wished them a happy and successful term of office. Calling out to the dense crowds that surrounded his car, the Lord Mayor's final gesture was to thank the people for the warmth of their welcome. So concluded the most historic day in Enfield's history, a day long to be remembered by its people. Teas and concerts for the old folks featured largely in the many celebrations held throughout the rest of Charter Week. At one, held at Merry Hill School, the old people were welcomed by the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Mrs. J, as they arrived to enjoy the sumptuous tea prepared and served for them by members of the Women's Voluntary Services and other voluntary Enfield organizations. During the course of the afternoon, the various centres were visited by the Mayor and Mayoress, who received a very warm welcome from the old people. Also during the week, the public visited in large numbers the exhibition at Forty Hall, arranged under the supervision of the Borough Librarian, which had been inaugurated on Charter Day by the Lord Mayor. Parties of old people were conducted around the exhibition and also given tea. The exhibition included an interesting selection of old documents appertaining to Enfield's past from the Council's collection and from the local historical society, a display of photographs and projected colour slides, and a selection of paintings, sculpture and pottery by members of local clubs. On leaving the exhibition, the Mayor proudly showed the Mace to some of the elderly visitors before passing through the historic gateway of the ancient stables of the hall. On the Friday of Charter Week, the Borough Council gave a Charter Ball, to which were invited representatives of the various societies and associations who had presented the new borough with items of insignia, corporation plate, and other valuable gifts. These gifts were displayed at the ball and were the centre of much admiration. The ball, which went on until 2 a.m., included a cabaret, which caused much. On the Saturday of Charter Week, a day of general festivities was arranged at the Enfield playing fields, which was attended by thousands of excited Enfield citizens. The celebrations included the roasting of an ox, and large crowds gathered to see the Mayor and Mayoress of Enfield arrive, and after greeting the 3 Enfield butchers who had undertaken the skilled task of carving the beast, accept and enjoy the first slices. The cooking of this magnificent carcass had gone on throughout the previous night under the watchful care of a number of Enfield Rover Scouts who had encamped on the playing fields, tending the fire and turning the spit under the expert guidance of the Council's Chief Sanitary Inspector. This traditional spectacle of feasting and rejoicing, so beloved of our merry England forefathers, aroused very great interest among the crowds, many of whom no doubt gave more than a passing thought to the days of meat rationing which they had experienced not long before. After munching their slices with evident relish, the Mayor and Mayoress assisted the local butchers in distributing hundreds of cuts to the eager and excited onlookers, young and old, many of whom returned for second helpings. The Mayoress particularly seemed to be enjoying the occasion, and it no doubt came as a great relaxation to her after the formalities of such a strenuous week. As the carving proceeded, 3 hearty cheers were given for the hard-working trio of butchers, who responded by graciously raising their straw hats, much to the delight of the crowd. Other attractions which pleased the crowd were the jumping competitions arranged at the invitation of the Council by the Enfield and District Horse Society, in which many riders with national and international reputations participated, and a motorcycle gymkhana which particularly thrilled the hundreds of small boys who surrounded the area. As darkness fell, the bright lights, music and gaiety of the fun fair and a magnificent display of fireworks attracted enthusiastic crowds. Thus, in Charter Year, Enfield people have lived the words of the borough motto, and have seen the end of the old urban district council, and the presentation of the Charter by the first citizen of the most ancient municipality to the first citizen of the newest borough. Truly, cherish the past, but strive after even better things in the future. Priora, cole, meliora, sequere.